Hey gorgeous souls, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me for another one of my YouTube videos today. So today's video is obviously in celebration of my book, baby, my third manifestation book, Hurt, Healing, Healed, that is out now. I also have my snazzy little balloon here that I had in celebration, which you can see it keeps turning around. So obviously I can't have it still for the whole video where you can just see it says Hurt, Healing, Healed is here. So you know what's on there, but a very beautiful balloon which I have stuck to my desk. So I thought let's have it in the YouTube video today. But it is celebrating obviously Hurt, Healing, Healed, which is out now. And I wanted to make a really fun, lighthearted video about 11 things you didn't know about Hurt, Healing, Healed, my book. So why did I make this video? Well, I think there's so much that goes into the author journey, into the writing process, even in the publication process that you guys don't get to see. And I think sometimes it's fun to learn about the process, and there's loads of really amazing synchronicities and weird signs and synchronicities that have happened throughout this book writing process that I thought this was a great video to film. So why 11 as well? 11 has followed this book. It seems to be the number of the book, as I will get into through our 11 points, 11 things you didn't know. But I really hope you're going to enjoy this anyway. But if you're new to my channel, then welcome. My name is Emma. I'm an award-winning life coach, law of attraction YouTuber, 2 times best-selling author, and host of the #1 spirituality podcast on iTunes, Spiritual Queen's Badass Podcast. And here on my channel, I cover all things law of attraction, manifestation, self-help, and spirituality. So not only do I really hope you're going to enjoy this video, but all of the videos I have here on my channel over the last 8 years. So I am so excited for this video because I have wanted to share these little snippets, these little things with you. And I thought, what can I do to share a little bit more behind the scenes of Hurt, Healing, Healed? And I thought, oh yes, let's share the things that people don't know about the book. So starting off at number 1 then, number 1 is that the book was actually meant to be released in November. So when I signed the contract, my publishing deal with Watkins, my publisher, in August 2021, I knew I needed 18 months to write that book. And Trish, one of my authors who I've coached over the years, who's also a psychic, I had a reading with her. She's quite pivotal to this journey as well. She told me, you're going to need 18 months to write that book. And I was like, okay, trust the process. I knew in myself that felt very expansive and that felt like a nice amount of time without a lot of pressure. So I said to Watkins, I need 18 months. So I see it coming out the end of 2022 really. And this obviously the discussions with the book was happening like end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and then signing the contract in summer 21. So they knew that I was writing at that point, it needed that time. So they agreed on November 22 publish. So originally it was going to be December, and I said, no, I think November feels better. Like it's a nicer time of the year. I think it's going to be very much, potent at that time, like inner work, December, divine feminine energy. I was like, I feel like November's the month. So it was booked in for November, and then signed for November. That was the publishing date. And then I handed in the manuscript February this year, I want to say, and they were like, right, because you've completed it ahead of schedule, we'll publish it in October if that's all right, because we feel it's going to be stronger in October. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Like I had my heart set on November, but actually when I looked at the numerology of the date that it would be published on in October, which is the 11th of October 22, I was like, oh my God, the numerology is so much better on this day. And it just feels so much better. And there's also another reason why I feel it was moved to the 11th of October, which I will share a little bit later on. So technically you got the book a month early, but I think that's really exciting how it all played out and how 11, 10, 22, the ones are there as you can see. And there's even more synchronicities with the book, which I'm going to share. Number 2 is that it nearly didn't get signed by my publisher. So when I was in the pitching stages of Hurt, Healing, Healed, the book looked very different, which is again, one of the points that I'm going to get to. It was a very, very different book, a different concept, and I really saw it in a different light. The title was still no, was it? Yeah, the title was still the same title. But it nearly didn't get signed, and it nearly didn't get signed because Watkins wanted me to write an inner child book, and I was like, I have zero interest in writing a book on inner child work. It is not what I want to write about. I really enjoy writing about law of attraction and spirituality, and of course inner child work will be in the book because it's me, and I love inner child work, but I have zero interest in writing an inner child book. And they were like, okay, like, we're going to have to like go and, you know, have discussions about this. And yeah, it very nearly didn't get signed. So I then pitched it to other publishers, and other publishers were interested, which was really, really good. But again, looking back, the concept was so different to what you see now. I think any of those publishers like reading this finished book would be like, that's the same book? Like, what happened? This is like polar opposite. So yeah, it's really interesting how it evolved, and obviously it came out with the right publisher, and luckily Watkins came back and were like, yeah, we trust you, we believe in your vision, we want to sign it. So luckily it came through, but it nearly did not get signed. It was touch and go, and I was very like trusting the process, universe, for a while, and that's why I broadened my horizons and pitched to other publishers as well. I got some really great feedback from that, and yeah, I love it. So I'm glad how it all evolved and how it all played out. But I think it's always funny when people do go along the publishing journey, because still, even now, there's still chances that I don't get signed, and this book nearly didn't make it. Number 3 is Trish predicted everything about this book. So the reason why I've added this in is because I mentioned Trish a little while ago. So Trish Atoni was one of my authors I mentored through my That Guy's House mentorship programs. I helped her birth her book into the world. God, I think it was like, maybe it was 2018. It was 2018 or it was 2019. I can't remember the year. It feels like a lifetime ago already. And me and Trish have always stayed in touch. She's a lovely, lovely woman, and she's also a psychic medium. So I've had a couple of readings with her over the years, and I had a reading with her in November 2020. And she was talking constantly about this book. It was not what I went to her about. Like, the reading was not meant to be about work or about a book, but that is what happened. So she spoke about this book very clearly, and obviously at that time the book was this first prior concept, so it was not the concept that you read now and that's actually released. And she was like, yeah, this book's going to be a deeply emotional healing book. And I actually listened to the recording of this reading, gosh, like a couple of weeks ago. I just really felt cool to listen to it. And I was sat there like, oh my God, every single thing she said came true. Personal life, work life, book. And she was like, yeah, like Watkins are going to have some concerns about it, but if they don't sign it, another publisher will. Totally happened. And then she was like, yeah, this book's going to be a real deep healing journey for you. You're going to move and shift into an emotional coach and really help people with the inner work. And at the time I was like, no, I'm not. Like, that's not what I want to do. I just want to do law of attraction. I just want to, you know, focus on that. And I've got no idea what Trish is on about. I don't want to do that. And she saw this book clear as day. And it literally is the exact same as what she said. But at the time I was like, no, that's not what it's going to be about. That's not what's going to happen. But it did. So Trish predicted the whole thing, even the release of it needing 18 months, which was so true. And when I completed the book, it was such a huge moment in my life, and I knew that that was like the perfect time to sign the book off and hand it over to the editors and stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting how clear she saw that book coming through, how clearly she saw the direction of my business going and stuff like that. And yeah, it is exactly what I do now. I would call myself an emotional coach. I'd call myself more of a life coach and like manifestation coach, but emotion coach, and I trained in emotional healing as well. It's exactly what I do. So she clearly saw it clearer than I did at the time. Number 4 is that my good friend George came up with the title of the book. So Positively Wealthy's title came from my good friend Selena. We were sat in her living room brainstorming ideas, and she was like, Positively Wealthy. And I was like, oh my God, yes, that's it. And this time George channeled the name of the book. He was like, I really feel it's going to be called Hurt, Healing, Healed. And I was like, I love it, it's so good, but I actually wasn't sold by it. When he said it, I loved it because I needed a title of a book to pitch to, to the publishers. But I actually wasn't sold on it. I thought it was actually going to change, and I was convinced the whole way through that the title of the book would change again. And it didn't. And as we got closer, I realized how Hurt, Healing, Healed was the perfect title for the book. So I think it's funny that both titles of my book, Spiritual Queen, I came up with, but Positively Wealthy and Hurt, Healing, Healed have come channeled from my friends, which is lovely. And obviously it's great to have their support, and it's great to, be able to tell this tale. I will say book number 4's title, I have thought of, that came through to me. So at least I can take credit for 2 out of 4 books. But whether it changes or evolves, who knows? It could change again. But again, I think it's such a nice story to be able to share, because George has been such a big part of my journey, being my friend, being my peer. Like, he has read this book for me. He was a test reader. He's put his own story in the book as well of his experiences with healing. So it's really, really nice that George is such a big part of the book, and that he channeled the name of the book too. Okay, so number 5 then is, what was the book about before? So I said that it had a previous concept to now, which it did, and it was a book about love. So I write about this in the book, and I say how the book is a book about love, but it's a book about unconditional love. And I think right from the beginning, right from the get-go of being an author, I was always like, I want to write a book on love. I feel like that's what I'm meant to do. And I knew that after Positively Wealthy, this was the book on love. I thought it was going to come second, but then Positively Wealthy came through. So I was like, this is the book. But obviously through the process, I was like, but I was 26, 27 at the time. And I was like, writing a book on love, like that seems a bit much for a 26, 27-year-old. And obviously the book I pitched to Watkins, the book I pitched to all of the publishers, was a book on love, and a book on divine assignments, and a book on like soul contracts and all this stuff. And I loved that concept, but it just didn't feel like the one. It didn't feel like this is what I really want to work or like write about. And obviously at the time I was single, so it was like all these different things. I was like, I just don't feel like I really want to do that. So then when it shifted into Hurt, Healing, Healed, and it shifted into healing through love and, loving yourself and healing yourself and your relationship with yourself to connect back to unconditional love, it was so clear that that's what the love message was, and not actually a book on manifesting love or relationships. It was a book on all relationships, all love, but especially unconditional love and that healing process to bring an abundance and joy to your life. So it's funny how it evolved so massively, but Trish literally said in my reading, you're going to literally just delete whole chapters, and you're going to be so frustrated that this book is not linear and that you're just going to be deleting whole chapters. And that's what I did. I deleted 20,000 words of my manuscript to then reframe it into Hurt, Healing, Healed, and it was the best thing I ever did. So I was so pleased when it did evolve, because then it felt more authentic and it felt like the book that I knew it could be. Number 6 then was that I uncovered a huge healing along this journey. So like with every book, I obviously live this experience. I go through this journey, I live it, I breathe it, I go through the process to be able to write this book. So Positively Wealthy, like you read about that journey in the book. This with Hurt, Healing, Healed, no different. It was an initiation, and accepting that initiation from the universe wasn't the most easiest of paths, definitely not, but the most needed. And I am so, so grateful that I've been able to go through this journey and be able to come out the other side feeling that happiness, feeling that freedom from the past and healing. So during the process, inner child work was the first thing that came up in lockdown 2020, boom, as I started writing the book. Then I really started to uncover why I'd experienced depression throughout a large majority of my adult life. And I knew that something had happened in my childhood, but I never knew what, and it never made sense. And I felt like I had this missing puzzle piece of okay, I work with clients all the time and I help them to uncover, and we can always backtrack it to a core memory or something that's happened in their life, but I didn't have that. And that was the most frustrating part, was that I knew something had happened, and I knew that my behavior and how I was and my depression and anxiety had been triggered by something, and something big, but I never knew what. So I was kind of going around with like this question mark on my life of not really knowing who I was, because I didn't really know what had happened to me as such. So during the process, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that was really tough, because obviously I'd gone from feeling so happy and going through this process and manifesting an amazing relationship and having Luna in my life to having PTSD, which was not fun in any way, shape or form, having flashbacks, having nightmares, feeling anxious all the time. And I was so confused why that had happened. And my therapist, who I worked with, Cameron, he was saying, well, it only comes up when you're in a safe place in your life. All of this healing is coming up because you are finally in a happy, stable place for it to all come to the surface. Your adrenals, your nervous system is finally like, right, now is the time to deal with it. So I then navigated obviously PTSD and healing and releasing that, which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I think because I was doing a lot of the inner work and I was working with people and using the tools and modalities in the book anyway, I feel like it was more of a case of, okay, that's just the thing coming up and it's releasing as I'm doing the inner work anyway. So PTSD was definitely a journey in itself. And then finishing writing the book, I feel like this is the most interesting part, is I'll cover a little bit more of the timing of when I finished the book, but I finished it in February this year. And then in March, I think it was March or April, I uncovered really randomly out of nowhere, it came up exactly what happened in my childhood to influence everything that's happened. So I thought it was very interesting that that happened after the book, because then I was like, wow, it feels like that completion. It feels like now I know who I am. I know why my life has been the way it's been. And I'm free from that now. I'm free from the PTSD. So it felt like a huge completion, but also like I finally knew who I am, and I finally know who my inner child is, and I finally have the complete jigsaw as such puzzle to be like, right, it all makes sense now, and it totally makes sense to me. So it was a real deep journey, that book. And yeah, it was hard in places, definitely, but it was needed. And obviously how that plays out for anyone reading the book will be so different, because all of our experiences and past experiences, traumas, fears, blocks will be different, of course, but it was my biggest initiation, this book, and has the biggest results, absolutely. Number 7 is, and I have actually covered this already, it took 18 months to write the book. It took me a heck of a lot longer to write this book. So Positively Wealthy took me 10 months to write. Spiritual Queen took me, I want to say 8 or 9 months to write. It was a long while ago. I think it was like 8-9 months. Positively Wealthy was 10 months, sorry. And then this book was 18 months. So a big difference in book length, but needed, because it was allowing me to go slow. It allowed me to have months where I wrote nothing because I couldn't. I was deep in that inner work process. I was deep in that purging process. I was deep living that book. So I'm really grateful that it did take 18 months, because I feel like the book is the strongest it can be because of that, because I had so much hindsight at that point. I had so many things happen within there that it made the book the incredible book that it is. So I was really chuffed that it did take 18 months, because I knew that everything that needed to be in there was in there. Whereas I think if it had been 12 months or it had been less, just things wouldn't have happened by that point, which I feel have made the book so strong and have beautiful lessons in there, which I could share. So yeah, it was strange nearly writing for a year and a half, but it was good. I enjoyed it. Number 8 is that I manifested Mel Robbins and Kyle Gray endorsing the book. So obviously endorsements are super important for books because it helps get the word out there, and obviously it looks good if people are recommending the book too. So when you're an author, definitely getting endorsements is always the main thing to focus on. And obviously, I was so chuffed that I had Dr. David Hamilton endorse Positively Wealthy, and Rebecca Campbell endorse Spiritual Queen. So I feel like I already had so many of the people I really look up to endorse the book. So when I was like, right, who do I want to endorse Hurt, Healing, Healed? Instantly, I was like, Mel. And I also wanted Marianne Williamson, but that just didn't quite come through. It just wasn't the right timing for that. So I'm holding on for the next one, definitely. But Marianne Williamson would definitely always be one. Mel Robbins absolutely was one. And Kyle, because Kyle has been such an important part of my journey. You guys know how much I love his work and his books. And yeah, I just love Kyle. He's an amazing guy. So I feel like those were the two or the three, should I say, that I really had my heart set on. So when I asked Mel, and I was like, if you don't ask, you don't get. She was so lovely. And honestly, like from working with Mel, she's come on my podcast too. She is genuinely the nicest person I think I've actually met in this industry. She is so genuine, so warm, so supportive, and such a lovely person who is just so down to earth, and it's so nice to see that. And it was such a joy for her to read the book and to endorse it and to have her support and her love. So that was such a nice, heartwarming experience for me, because instead of it feeling like a professional kind of like exchange of will you endorse my book, it was actually a really nice, beautiful thing that happened. And I got to know Mel a little bit more. Obviously she got to read the book, and it was a really nice experience, so I was really chuffed about that. And same with Kyle I absolutely love, and he's always been a big supporter of my work, which I'm always so grateful for. So when his endorsement came through, again, I was just super chuffed, because I've looked up to Kyle for so many years. I've read his books. I've promoted his books on my work so much. So to be able to have Kyle support my work as well was, yeah, a dream come true. So I'm very grateful for their love and support. So number 9 is that the book is 70,000 words. It is my longest book by far. Spiritual Queen is 50,000, Positively Wealthy is 60,000, and Hurt, Healing, Healed is 70,000. And I had a lady comment on my Instagram yesterday saying, you know it's going to be a good book when it's, I think it was thin margins and small print or something like that. I was like, oh, is that how people judge it? And she's like, yeah, like, you know it's a good book because there's going to be tons crammed in it. So I feel like Positively Wealthy was more like graciously spaced out for ease. This book, literally Watkins were like, we're going to have to reduce the size of the text, Emma, because my contract was for 60,000 words. I delivered 70 and I just wasn't going to say anything. I was like, I'll let them tell me they're going to cut some. But they actually didn't cut any, which I was really surprised about. And they were like, we're just going to have to make the book print smaller. So that's what they did. And I don't think it is bad. I think it looks like a normal sized book, if anything, like print wise and spacing wise. So I was really grateful they kept everything in. But what surprised me is it looks thinner than Positively Wealthy. So the spine of Hurt, Healing, Healed is thinner than Positively Wealthy, but there's 10,000 words more in there. So I think it looks deceiving of like, oh, Emma hasn't written as much, when actually I've written 10,000 words more for this book. So I'm definitely hoping the next one is not 80,000. I do not want to continue this upping 10,000 words trend here. But I think it's interesting because there was so much to put into this book, and so much I didn't want to miss out, and so much that was so needed that there was nothing I could cut out. It needed to be 70,000 words to get the full experience, the full experience of the book and the journey. So I'm really glad that Watkins were supportive with that. And another thing I want to add to that as well is Watkins told me to take some stuff out, especially in terms to referring to pandemic fatigue. And I was like, nope. I said, it's still going to be relevant. Trust me on this. And I'm like, we're not sure. Like, we think people are going to be so sick of hearing about that, and it's not going to be relevant by the time the book comes out. Oh, it is. Emma knew. So I was like, nope, I'm leaving it in, because it is going to be an ongoing theme, even if it's not so COVID related. The fatigue we feel, and the unmotivated energy, and all the things we're experiencing as a collective still, oh boy, it's still relevant. So I was really glad I left it in. But yes, I trusted in that. But point 10 then is that it's not an inner child book. Ooh, so many people. So like I said, Watkins wanted to position it as an inner child book. They wanted me to write an inner child book. And I was like, nope. And from one of the first blurbs of the book, they put in there, there's an inner child book. And I was like, please, can we take this out? I was like, I do not want to confuse people. It's not an inner child book. There's one chapter on inner child work, just like Positively Wealthy. So you cannot call it an inner child book. And it's a book on manifestation. It's a book on healing. And I knew that it would put people off if it was an inner child book as well. So I was like, I also don't want to make someone not buy the book when actually they could really enjoy the book because it's like one chapter. So the book is not an inner child book, and I think a lot of people think it is. I've had a lot of comments of people saying, is it a book on inner child work? Absolutely not. I've tried to remove the word inner child from all marketing, from all blurbs, everything, because it's not that. Yes, it's a tool. Yes, it's something that's explored in the book, of course, because it's so powerful. But the book is a law of attraction book. The book is a book on healing through spirituality and law of attraction. Of course, it's me. Everything's going to be manifestation. So it is not an inner child book. And finally, number 11. So this is probably the most important point to me of the 11 energy, the one energy that surrounds the book. So as I mentioned as I think it was the first point, the date got moved to the 11th of October, 2022. So the 11th of October, 2009 was when my nan passed away. And my heart was broken when my nan passed away. She was so, so important to me, and I love her so, so much. And it was only about a month ago that I realized this. I was like, oh my God, didn't Nan pass away on the 11th of October? So I like messaged my granddad and like messaged my auntie and was like, didn't she pass away on the 11th? And they were like, yeah, she did. And I was like, wow, like that feels like huge that my book Baby is coming out on the anniversary of her passing. And what's even weirder is that my other nan, so obviously this was my nan from my mother line who'd passed away. So my nan, so actually they're both from my mother line because one's my step nan, one's my real nan. So they're both mother line nans. So one passed away obviously 13 years ago now. And the other one literally passed away as I finished writing the book. And it felt weird because I was like, there's no coincidence with this, that so much motherline healing has happened for me during this book process, like as a whole. Like the book's not about motherline healing, but for me, that has been a huge part of my healing journey. And now the book's coming out on my nan's passing anniversary. And also, as I was writing the conclusion, my other nan did pass away and transition back to source. So I was like, this is wild. Like, this is so synchronistic that both nans are like represented with this book and both have that symbology with this. And I couldn't finish the conclusion. The conclusion was so stuck. And I was like, Emma, you have got a few weeks. You've got to do this. Like, you've got to hand it in. And the day she passed, you'll read it in the conclusion, that conclusion just came out. And I know I should have been grieving. I know I should have been like present and grieving and feeling. And I had COVID at the time as well. But all that I could do was write this conclusion, and it was like it just poured out and it hadn't been able to flow before that. So I thought that was really interesting as well. But I think it's nice that there is that, you know, reference to both nans, and it feels very potent. It feels very synchronistic. So I was really, chuffed when that happened. And it was a really nice symbology and a nice ending and conclusion to the book as it releases into the world. So there you have it. There's 11 things you didn't know about Hurt, Healing, Healed. Hopefully you didn't know them because I haven't really shared those anywhere. So fingers crossed you didn't know them. But I hope you've enjoyed learning about them and learning a little bit more about the process that I've been going through over the last 2 years. But I really, really hope you're going to enjoy the book. It's available now worldwide from anywhere that sells books in ebook, audiobook, and paperback format. So obviously like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, WH Smith, Waterstones, anywhere you can get books from, you can get the book from. So I really hope you're going to enjoy it. Please let me know if you've started reading it in the comments. What are your thoughts? What have you experienced so far? And let me know how you get on, because I would love to hear. But the link to obviously audio copy is below with more information on the book and what you can expect. So please do make sure to go over and grab a copy because you get a free webinar as well. How to Manifest Like a Pro, my free 60-minute webinar instantly when you order the book. So you get a little nice bonus freebie as well. And don't forget, there's also also gifts with the book that you can use on Giphy, I think that's how you say it, Giphy, and Instagram stories. And also you can get the meditation playlist. So if you've got the book and you want accompanying deeply healing meditations, which I guide you through to help deepen this work so much more, you've got that as well, which I'll link down below as well. And don't forget, there's also resources with the book. So there's a workbook and free meditations that come with the book. So don't forget to download those as well. But I really hope you're enjoying the book, guys. I really hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts, and I'm so excited to see what Hurt, Healing, Healed magic enters your life from the book. But thank you so much, gorgeous souls, for watching. I appreciate all your views and likes. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because I would love to see you again soon. Don't forget to leave me a comment in the comments box down below, because I reply to them all. And don't forget, you can join my free Law of Attraction support group over on Facebook, where you can join myself and other like-minded souls, where we talk all things Law of Attraction and spirituality. I hope you have a fantastic week, whatever you are up to, and I will see you all in my next video, which will be on Friday. Lots of love.